Looks like we have everyone here, so
Please state the call and Chagnon.
Stand by the chair, raise your right hand, please. You solemnly affirm the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Please be seated. Pull your chair up to the microphone and speak into the mic.
And proceed. Good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Evan Chagnon, Chagnon.
And which town or city do you live in, Mr. Chagnon?
I live in Brunswick, Maine.
Okay. And how long have you lived in Brunswick, Maine?
Almost 10 years.
And how are you employed?
I'm the service manager at a company called R.A. Weber.
I'd like to take you back to October 8th, 2016. Were you traveling in Vermont at that point?
I was.
And where were you coming from?
I have family in New York. My grandmother, we were traveling home from visiting her.
And you were traveling which direction, southbound or northbound?
I was headed towards Maine, so it would be southbound.
And were you on I-89?
Yes.
And do you remember approximately what time of night you were traveling on I-89?
Roughly, vaguely, if I recall, it was around 11:30 at night in that area.
Was anybody in the car with you?
Yes.
Who was in the car with you?
My wife, Jessica, who's here, and my son, Braden. He's 10.
Okay. And what type of car were you driving?
2011 GMC Terrain.
Did something out of the ordinary happen that night on October 8th on I-89?
It did, yes.
Do you remember approximately what section of I-89 you saw something out of the ordinary?
If I drove there, I could point it out, but it was, I can't remember the name of the town it was in, because I'm not familiar with that area. But
So why don't you tell us, please, then, what it is you first saw, and then we'll go from there.
the first thing I saw was just yellow glow in the distance of the flame that was down in the embankment. It was probably eighth of a mile away from me.
All right, and then what did you do?
We were traveling at maybe 75 miles an hour, so we came upon it very fast, in a matter of seconds.
Okay, and did you do anything after you saw that?
I did, yes. After we pulled over, I got out of the vehicle.
And where did you pull over in relation to the fire that you saw?
Right at the immediate right-hand side of the road, directly across from the accident scene.
And do you remember seeing anything else in that vicinity?
A bunch of vehicles off to the right side of the road, and the flames down the ditch, and the other vehicle that was in the center of the road that was all angled.
Did you pull over south or north of the cars that were already parked there? Do you remember?
I was directly across from the Volkswagen that was down the embankment.
There weren't any cars at that point when you got there?
There was, if I recall, there was 4 or 5 vehicles there already.
And was anybody out of their vehicles when you got there?
I recall maybe seeing 3 people out of their vehicles. One gentleman I spoke to that was directly in front of me immediately after exiting my vehicle.
And were there any police officers on scene when
No,
you
ma'am.
got there? And do you remember how soon after you got there the police officers got on the scene?
Within a matter of 45 seconds.
And what did you see with respect to the police officers?
The sheriff that arrived on scene, I believe, was the second one on scene. I believe the first initial one had already occurred when I got there, because the second, the sheriff that arrived on scene when I was there had passed me, and I recall passing him in a U-turn, maybe a few miles back on the interstate. And that was the sheriff that, I remember the look of the vehicle. He was the one that pulled up on scene. There was no other law enforcement there at the time.
And did you see that officer do anything that pulled up on scene?
My attention, more or less, was down in the embankment trying to figure out if I could do anything about that. I didn't really see what that police officer was doing.
Okay. Did you, when you looked down over the embankment, were there people down there by the car that was on fire?
There was only one gentleman.
Okay, and what was he doing?
There wasn't much he was doing, it, nothing much we can do, it was so hot.
Okay. So did you actually go down into the median yourself?
Halfway so, yes ma'am.
And then you stopped?
Yes.
Why?
The heat from the flames.
Okay. So after you tried to get down into the median and stop because of the heat, what did you do next?
I just turned around and came back up.
And what did you do?
I stood next to my vehicle.
All right. And then what happened?
Maybe a minute and a half, or a minute and 45 seconds went by, and some other vehicles had pulled up behind me. That's when the second accident occurred, was about a minute and a half, minute and 45 seconds after that point of coming up the embankment.
Did you see what happened prior to that second crash happening? Did you see anybody get into any vehicle and leave?
I did not, ma'am. It was pitch black, dark.
Okay. And did you see a vehicle leave at all?
I heard it.
You heard
I did not physically see it.
Okay. But do you know who was in the vehicle that actually left?
At that point in time, I did not.
Okay. But at some point, did you learn who had driven off?
I did. I heard some other people hollering and some screaming commotion going on up on top, a few cars ahead of me. And the one thing I did hear that did stood out was he took off, so I then realized what had happened.
Okay. Did they indicate who was driving that cruiser, or who they thought had driven the cruiser?
All they said was he, and it was an assumption after that on my part.
Okay. Which direction did you see the cruiser take off, or hear the cruiser take off?
The cruiser took off the proper direction down the highway, which was southbound.
All right, and then after that happening, at that point, did you look to see what was making the sound you heard?
At that point, there was a crest or like a hill right at that area where we were. So shortly after the vehicle accelerated off, it was lost sight. So you could no longer see the vehicle very shortly after.
So at some point, did something happen with that vehicle that left the scene?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us, please, what happened.
Right at that point, I walked over to my vehicle where my children and my wife were to check on them, and maybe 3.5, maybe 4.5 minutes went by, maybe a little longer than that. This was quite a long time ago, so it's hard for me to recall the exact time.
Were you just still standing by?
I was just still standing by the side of my vehicle.
Okay, then what happened?
It was about that time that went by, and the sound of, it was just the sound of somebody like putting a vehicle on, just, you know how you go from no throttle to wide open throttle, all of a sudden how the engine shifts down and that revs up. That's what you heard all of a sudden. Nothing prior to that sound.
That's what you heard, though?
That is what I heard. After the acceleration sound occurred is when you seen the police cruiser crest the hill.
You saw the police cruiser?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And it's a very short distance from the top of that crest to where the first initial accident scene was. So there wasn't any time to react or anything like such. In the amount of time that anybody seen the vehicle or myself to remove myself from danger or anything like such. So there wasn't a split second from the time we seen the cruiser to the time it slammed into the first initial accident scene.
Okay. Do you know what it slammed into?
It slammed into the original vehicle, whatever he was driving at the time. At the time, you couldn't recognize what it was anyways.
So, did you actually see the cruiser coming back on scene?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know which lane of travel it was in?
It was directly in the center of the road.
Okay. And was it in a direct line, or was it swerving, or what was it?
It was in a direct path.
Okay. And what was in its direct path?
His vehicle, first initial vehicle that he got in the accident with.
Okay. So he was making a straight path towards that vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
And he did that?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear whether he applied his brakes at all?
I did hear, and I did not hear any application of brakes. I heard acceleration, not braking.
see that the cruiser is driven into the pickup truck, what did you see as a result of that impact?
The pickup truck was put off to the side of the road where our vehicles were parked on the right-hand side. And the police cruiser is what initially created all the damage, I believe, on the right. I don't think the pickup had much to do with it. The police cruiser went into the right, off into the vehicles where we were all parked. And I think the pickup just initially just didn't move very far. It just went from that side to the right side. And the police cruiser just remained traveling for a short distance.
Okay, so, so then I understand the cruiser hit the pickup truck and then it hit other cars? Is that
Yes.
what you're saying? Can you, that were parked on the side of the road?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know how many cars it hit?
From what I recall, there was 4, possibly 5 vehicles that were damaged in the process.
And how far were you parked from the vehicle that was there in the middle of the road when you first arrived on the scene?
Just so I make sure I understand his vehicle that he was in originally.
Yes.
It was maybe 100 yards away from me.
Okay, was it north or south of you?
It was south of me.
All right. So you said that it hit 4 or 5 cars. Did you see anything about those cars that when they collided into?
I was standing on the outside of my vehicle when the second crash occurred with the cruiser. The windshield came out of the vehicle and came within feet of my head.
Came out of which vehicle?
Of the police cruiser.
Okay.
I wasn't standing very far away from that, so that was kind of a shock and stuff. So after that point, my head was kind of spinning at that time, along with everybody else's. There was a young girl, I'm not sure what vehicle she was in, but she had gotten injured, and my attention turned to her. I ended up taking care of her and putting her in my vehicle. A police officer assisted me in doing so. So some stuff happened in between there that I didn't see. The vehicle in front of me got damaged. That's how close I was to the scene. The vehicle in front of that was the one that got rolled over into the ditch.
Did your car get hit at all?
It did not. It was missed by very few inches. Before I exited my vehicle, I reversed it slightly away from the car in front of me, initially when I first arrived on that scene. And I think that gave me that extra few inches so I did not get damaged.
The girl you said you were helping, what kind of injury did she have?
I think it was just a small cut on her arm, and she was more, it was her stomach that was upset. She was puking and crying uncontrollably. It was more along those lines of an injury.
Were there other people around after this?
Yes, there were several people around. There was a lot of stuff going on. It was, from what I recall, there was maybe 12 or 15 people running around that were injured and hollering and screaming. And, I'm not sure if I'm correct about this, but it sounded to me like there was family members that had arrived on the scene of a victim of some sort. That was quite a heavy commotion that was in front of my vehicle. There was a lot of screaming due to that. I heard something about asking him if he was dead and stuff, and it was a family member to a victim on the scene in one of the other vehicles ahead of me.
So did you ever see the driver of the cruiser after the impact?
I did not see the driver after that incident. The only time I seen the driver was after the fact of the paramedics getting him out of the ditch.
Okay. Did you see him at all come out of the vehicle, the cruiser vehicle?
I did not see him come out of the vehicle.
Okay. And so you said then the police officers got involved with him
Yes.
after that? And you said there was no damage to your car at all?
No damage to my vehicle.
Okay, and did you have any injuries?
I did not.
And at that point, did you leave?
I did not.
Okay, what did you do?
We remained on scene for quite some time until law enforcement cleared us. Still remained to take care of that girl that was in my vehicle. I walked around for a few minutes and asked anybody if I could do anything, you know. And at that point, both vehicles were on fire. The police cruiser and the Jetta and the embankment were on fire. So that was, we were very close to it, so I was trying to keep away from it. And
Did you hear any popping sounds from the cruiser?
yes.
Can you tell us about that?
There was a slight few popping sounds, but I commonly hear that several times when a vehicle burns due to things that have pressure in them. I didn't hear anything that sounded out of the ordinary when a vehicle was burning.
All right, thank you. That's all the questions I have. Defense may have some. No questions. Thank you.
Well said, thank you.
Good afternoon. Please make sure you keep your voice up, okay, so we can all hear you.
Okay.
Would you please tell the ladies and gentlemen your name
Allie Harris,
and how do you spell Harris?
Harris,
And what town or city do you reside in?
Heartland, Vermont,
Okay. And how are you employed?
Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center,
Okay, as what?
a nurse,
And how long have you been a nurse?
4 years.
So I'd like to take you back to October 8, 2016. Do you have that date in mind?
Yes,
All right. Were you traveling in the Burlington area that night? October
yes.
8th? And where were you traveling from?
I worked at UVM Medical Center.
Okay, back then in 2016?
Yes,
And you were nursing back then?
yes.
Okay. And do you remember about what time you were traveling from the university?
I was working an evening shift, so it would have been around 11:30 p.m.
Was anybody else in the car with you?
No,
Okay. So you were traveling south on 89,
yes.
and you were traveling to where?
Home to Cambridge, Vermont at the time.
And what kind of car were you driving?
Volkswagen Jetta.
Okay. So as you're traveling south on I-89, does something catch your eye that's out of the ordinary?
Several cars were pulled over in the emergency lane on the right side of the road, and I could see flames in the median on the left side of the road.
And so what did you do?
I pulled over with the other cars. I hadn't seen EMS or a police officer or police car, so I got out of my car and went over to the median to see if I could help.
How many cars do you remember were parked on the side of the road when you got there?
I don't have maybe 2 or 3.
Okay. So, and you said you didn't see any EMS, but did you see any law enforcement at that point on the side?
I did not see a law enforcement car, which prompted me to get out and see if I could help. When I went to the crash scene, there was a police officer there.
Okay. So how, did you park north of the crash scene or south of the crash scene?
I was a little behind the crash scene, just slightly.
In other words, before you actually got to the crash scene, that's where you parked? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, about pretty much right across from the crash scene.
So you got out, and what did you do?
Walked over to the median, saw the car in flames. I saw public personnel, a few, just 2 or 3 people around the car, and the police officer.
Okay. And did you see anything else near the car?
I did see a body.
Okay. And so what did you do next?
I did not think there was much I could do at that point. The police officer was telling us to get back into our car immediately.
Do you know why?
I had thought because the car was going to explode. So I can remember getting back into my car, not understanding why anyone else was proceeding,
What do you mean proceeding?
driving away.
Okay.
The 2 cars in front of me were just, everyone got back into their vehicle, but no one was driving. And within a matter of seconds, what I thought, the cruiser, I thought more help was coming. There was a cruiser traveling at a very fast speed, headed north on the southbound lane.
Do you remember which lane it was in?
It was in the passing, headed north in the passing lane,
Okay. And were you able to tell, you said it was going fast?
very fast.
Okay. And then what happened?
I could hear the sound of the speed, which didn't slow down. So at that point, I was nervous that this cruiser was going to hit me, at which point I laid myself in my passenger seat and felt my car get hit along the driver's side and back end.
Do you know what you got hit with or by?
I think I don't know for sure, but what it felt like at the time was the cruiser, in addition to many car parts.
Okay. Did you actually see the cruiser as it got onto the scene and what it did before you got hit?
All I saw was the cruiser coming back north.
Okay. All right. And you said you didn't hear it slowing down. You didn't hear any brakes being put on?
No, I also didn't see any brakes. I was able, it came full force back north.
Okay. What do you mean you didn't see any brakes?
There was no deceleration.
Okay. All right. So, can you tell us what got hit on your car?
The front left, my driver's door, driver's window, back door, and whole back side. Essentially, the whole left side of the car had damage and was deemed totaled.
Okay. And did you get out of your car after that?
I did. I was at that point in quite a bit of shock, but was able to still open the door. So I was confused about what was going on, but got out of the car, and there was a car flipped over behind me with a passenger inside that vehicle, and a couple other people and myself helped that passenger out of their car.
Okay. So I just want to backtrack a moment. You said that you got out of your car, you were confused. Do you know why you were getting out of your car?
I was still scared that the car in the median was going to blow up.
Okay. All right. So you got out, and how far did you walk before you got to this car that was on its side?
Probably not more than 20 feet.
Okay. And what did you do to try to help in that?
There was an EMS, I believe, it was someone else involved in this, but I believe they were a VMS. And they were really helping to get this passenger out as I was holding the door. And I proceeded to walk down the line of the cars and assist where needed.
Okay. I'd like to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 30 and 31 and ask for identification and ask if you recognize what's in that photograph, those photographs?
Yes, my car.
That's your car?
Yes.
In both photographs?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state would move these photographs into evidence?
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay. 30 and 31 are admitted.
Your Honor, we'd like to project what the cars look like.
Okay.
So is that your car, your VW Jetta? I guess it's on a truck to be taken away? Is that your car?
That does look like it. The other picture,
Okay, we'll
Yes.
show you the other picture. That one right there?
yes.
Okay, and so, can you describe again the damage that was done to your car?
The front end, the front left, the driver's door, driver's window, the back door, and the back left bumper.
And did I understand you to say that it was totaled?
Yes.
Okay. Did you suffer any physical injuries as a result of what happened to you on I-89?
No.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I have. Defense may have a couple questions.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. You're all set. Thank you.
Step up, stand by the chair, please. Raise your right hand. You solemnly affirm the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury.
Yes.
Please be seated. Pull your chair forward. Speak into the microphone.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Dylan Hayden, Hayden.
And what town or city of residence do you reside in?
Glenville, New York.
Okay. And how are you employed, Mr.?
I work for RM Dalrymple Company, a construction company.
So I'd like to take you back to October 8, 2016. Were you traveling in Vermont on that date?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us where you were traveling from?
Me, my wife, and some friends were up for the weekend. We spent the night in Burlington and we're headed back to an apartment we had rented.
Okay. Which is where?
I don't remember the name of the town, unfortunately.
Is it south of Burlington?
Yes.
Okay. So were you on I-89
Yes.
on that date? Do you remember approximately what time?
Around midnight.
Okay. So who else was in the car with you?
My wife and my friend and his wife were in the back seat.
Okay. And you were traveling in a southbound direction?
Yes.
What type of car were you driving?
Toyota Camry.
Did something out of the ordinary happen on I-89 when you were traveling that night on October 8th?
Yes.
Do you remember where on 89 you were? What section?
No, sorry.
Okay. So tell us, please, tell the jury what you first observed as you're traveling south on 89.
The first thing of note I observed was a police cruiser going past me with the lights on, and shortly thereafter we arrived at the site of a vehicle crash.
Okay. So when you got there, what did you see?
There was a smashed pickup truck in the middle of the road and a vehicle in the median on fire. We pulled over onto the side of the road. We got out, see if we could help, and
Okay, and so when you say you saw a police cruiser go by you, was that cruiser then parked at the scene by the time you got there?
yes.
All right. So, were there other cars on the scene as well?
Yes.
Do you have any idea how many?
I think there was one car in front of us, and then a few cars arrived after us.
Okay. And you said that you got out to help, so where did you go when you got out to help?
We walked towards the median to see if there was anything we could do.
Who's we?
Everyone in my car.
All right. And what did you see when you got to the median?
The police officer was attempting to pull someone from the car. The car was on fire.
Okay. And did you go down into the median?
No, pretty much, it was pretty much fully inflamed at that point. So,
And so what's the next thing that happened that you remember?
the cop was yelling at the people in the car for them to get out. The car burst into bigger flames, and then he started yelling to us to get off of the road.
And do you know why at that point the officer was asking you, yelling at you to get off the road?
At the time, we just assumed it was just for safety reasons.
So what did you do when the officer was yelling you to get off the road?
We went back to our vehicle, which was still pulled over on the right side.
Okay. And then, did you get into your vehicle?
Yes.
All right. And were you driving the vehicle at the time?
Yes.
And so you were in the driver's seat,
Yes.
facing south?
Yes.
Okay. And so what did you see happen next?
Shortly after we got back in the car, I saw another vehicle coming towards us the wrong way, coming north. With the flashing lights on, I saw the police cruiser.
Okay. And were you able to determine how fast it was going?
I don't know how fast it was going. It was going pretty fast, though.
Do you remember which lane of the southbound lanes it was coming from?
Um,
Coming in?
I remember it pretty much just coming right down the middle of the road.
Okay. And so tell us what you saw next.
Well, I thought it was just another police officer responding, and then I noticed that it wasn't slowing down, and then it struck the pickup truck that was still in the middle of the road, bounced off of that, and hit us and several cars behind us.
So as you saw you were watching the cruiser as it was coming back?
Yeah.
As you saw it coming back, did it stay in the same position it was in as it was coming back, right until it hit the truck?
It appeared it was just pretty much going straight.
To your knowledge, it wasn't swerving to miss anything? Or?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, all right. So you said it bounced off the truck and hit you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
It hit after it hit the truck in the road. It deflected towards us and kind of sideswiped our car.
Okay, and what happened next?
It kind of ran along the edge of the driver's side of our car and knocked the driver's side view mirror through the window into my lap, and then hit several cars behind us.
So as it sideswiped you, it hit your rear view mirror into your lap?
Yes.
Was the force that it hit you with or sideswiped you with, was it significant?
Pretty significant, yeah.
Okay. And so you saw it, did you see it do anything with the cars parked on the road other than yourself?
I saw that it continued to hit several cars behind us.
Okay. So what eventually happened to the cruiser after it hit all the other cars?
Came to a rest in the middle of the road behind us, and then it caught on fire as well.
Okay. Did you ever see the driver of the cruiser?
No.
Okay. So what did you do next?
We got out. Me and my friend went to see if anyone needed help, and my wife and his wife stayed by our car.
Did you see any cars that you went to help in particular?
There were several cars behind us that got hit pretty bad. One car was on its side, and my friend was attempting to help pull someone out of that car, and then I continued to see if there was anyone else that needed help.
Did you help anybody else?
There was, I don't know if he was a off-duty EMT or nurse, but somebody with some sort of medical training had a medical bag that was trying to assist other people, and he was asking if anyone had a light or a flashlight, so I think I used my phone flashlight to help him assist other people.
So you indicated that you had gotten sideswiped. Was your car in fact damaged?
Yes.
By that sideswipe? Other than the rear view mirror falling into your lap, what other damages were there to your car?
Scrapes and dents all along the driver's side.
Can you tell us, was the damage significant?
Yeah, pretty significant. The insurance company deemed it totaled.
Okay. So I'd like to show you what's been marked for identification as States Exhibits 32 and 33 and see if you recognize those.
Yep,
Can you just take,
Yep.
And what's in those photos?
that's our car.
Okay, and does that accurately reflect what your car looked like after this incident?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state would move into evidence 32 and 33.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay. Both are admitted.
So this is your car here.
Yes.
Can you describe what damage there is on the side here?
Above the driver's side window, there was some scrapes and dents going up along the front, which you can't really see in this picture, and along the front fender, as well as the rearview mirror and the broken driver's side
Is this a
window.
better picture of it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Were you able to drive the car away from the scene?
No, we were not allowed to.
Okay. Were you, thank you, sir. Were you injured at all as a result of what happened here?
Some minor scrapes from the window.
What do you mean?
From when the window shattered, I had some minor scrapes on my arm, on my left arm.
Okay. When the window shattered, what happened? Did it come into the car?
Yeah, the mirror landed on my lap. I had glass in my mouth and in my hair.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions. I don't know if defense counsel will have any.
No questions. Thank you.
You're all set, thank you.
Thank you.
Stand by the chair. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Please be seated. Pull your seat forward, speak into the microphone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Laura Howland, Howland.
And what town or city of residence do you reside in?
Richmond, Vermont.
And how are you employed, Ms. Hunt?
I'm employed through UVM Medical Center. I've been a nurse there for 30 years.
I'd I'd like to take you back to October 8, 2016, late at night. Were you traveling on that date and time?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And were you traveling I-89?
I was traveling I-89.
And where were you coming from?
I had just gotten on the on-ramp in Williston, Vermont.
Okay. And you were going to where?
I was heading to home, to Richmond. I was going to be getting off the interstate there and the exit.
Who was in the car with you?
So my husband was in the car with me. He was in the passenger seat. I was driving.
Okay. And what kind of car were you driving?
We have a Toyota Venza that we had for 1 week previous to the accident.
Okay. You just purchased it?
We had just traded.
Okay. So as you're driving south, going home, did you notice anything out of the ordinary on I-89?
Yes, actually, when we got onto the on-ramp, I noticed that there was a trooper behind me, and I remember saying to my husband, oh, that's good that the police are out tonight surveilling and making sure everyone's safe. And no blue lights. I got onto the ramp, and he proceeded to pass me on the left-hand side. I stayed in the right hand. We came to the rest area, and from the rest area, we could see from the rest area heading towards Richmond that there was fire. And my husband then proceeded to say, Laura, it looks like there's been an accident ahead.
Okay. And so how much farther did you travel before you arrived at the accident?
So we were probably the fifth car that was pulled off to the right-hand side when we came upon the accident. So it hadn't happened, I don't think, we came upon it quickly.
Okay. And were there any police officers on the scene when you got there?
The police officer, I think that passed me on the interstate, I remember seeing that cruiser up further onto the scene.
And you saw it parked there?
Yes.
All right. And did you see where the officer was that had been driving that cruiser?
No, it was too far up. I could not see. I just remember seeing the lights.
Okay. And so you got out of your car?
No, I stayed in the car, seatbelted in, because I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. My husband and I had that discussion together, what we were going to do. I said, I have no medical equipment with me. He used to be an EMT and an EMTI and a fireman. He said, I'm getting out. I said, that's fine. I said, please be safe. I'm staying here until medical personnel get here, and then I'll come out to help.
Okay. So he got out?
He did.
Okay. And did you see where he went?
Yes, he crossed in front of me in the car. I told him to be safe, and he went towards the debris in the center of the road where the first accident, where the truck was.
Okay. So how long did you stay in the car?
I stayed into the car until the police cruiser that was next to our car with another car near it on fire. And as soon as I saw that the cruiser was on fire, I immediately got out of the car because I didn't know if it was going to explode or not.
Did you see that cruiser leave the scene at all before you actually saw it on fire?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what did you watch it do?
I watched it slowly head towards Richmond. It was going down the hill. And I remember saying to myself, was there another accident further down the hill? Why would he be going away from the accident scene?
Okay. And so then did you see the cruiser come back?
Yes, I heard the cruiser and I saw the cruiser coming back at a very high speed. And I witnessed it hitting the debris in the road. And I proceeded to say Hail Mary, and I watched it flip into the line of cars.
Okay. All right. And did your car get hit by anything?
Yes, our car got hit.
Okay. What did it get hit with, do you know?
Debris. I know that there was something that came through my windshield. I prayed that I wasn't going to get killed. It was horrendous.
All right. And so then you saw the cruiser go on fire, and then you get out?
I did. I remember, first thing I did was I looked to see if my husband had run back and he was safe. And when I saw him come from the ditch, I realized that he was okay. I unbuckled. I got out of the vehicle. And I remember before I got out, I saw a state trooper coming down the road running with his gun pulled. And my husband was coming out from the ditch. And I remember the police officer saying, get back, get back. And I couldn't understand why, because in my head, I was thinking that there was a police officer that must have lost control of the cruiser. I didn't think that someone had taken it. And I thought to myself, what had happened. Did he have a heart attack? Did the accelerator stick? What happened? And so I think that Christopher was trying to go up to see if he could help. When the police officers would get back, help the people in the cars that had been hit. And then I got out of the car and I walked in front because it was on fire. And my husband said, walk down towards Williston, down towards, you were going to the wet rest area. So I started to walk down.
Okay, so let me stop you for a moment and take you back for a moment to when you see the police cruiser coming back towards the crash scene. Do you have an actual memory of seeing it coming back?
Yes.
Okay, and in your memory, did it swerve or at any point, or did it just go in a straight line?
No, it was aiming towards the debris in the road.
Okay.
It went straight head on.
Okay. So, and when you say debris in the road, what are you talking about?
So when we first came upon the scene, we saw that there was a pile of mangled metal that I didn't even know if it was a truck, if it was a car, if it was two cars, but it was a pile of debris that was there that we came upon.
So, you got out of your, you'd gotten out of your car, and then you were told to try and help others? Is that?
Well, my husband proceeded to say, please walk towards Williston, get out of the way at this point, because we really hadn't had many emergency equipment come yet, no ambulances or anything. So I started to walk towards Williston, and there were other cars that were not hit, that had pulled off to the side of the road. And I remember coming upon two young men and a young woman, and I said, can I please use your cell phone so that I can call home? We had two sons that were at home, and I wanted to call to let them know we were safe and that we'd been in an accident. And so the young man let me use his phone. Like teenagers, they didn't answer the phone, so I called my mom, and she then called the boys and to let them know that we were safe, but there had been a bad car accident and that we would not be home right away.
And did the people that you had borrowed the phone from, did they say who they were or what they were doing there?
They had said that they had been at the concert that evening. They were coming home, and I proceeded to tell them that I was a nurse. And then one of the young men said to me, well, our father is a physician. And he pointed down to the side of the road where the police officer and where Stephen Bourgoin and their father were on the side of the road.
Okay. So what did you do then after you made that phone call?
So I yelled down to the physician, the boy's father, and I said, I'm a nurse. I'm a cardiac nurse. Can I help you? And he said, yes, when medical personnel get me medical equipment. I went and I grabbed a red bag off the ambulance, and I went running down.
Did you know what emergency equipment he was talking about?
No, I was thinking like maybe first aid, like a bag, so that I could maybe get a blood pressure. We could assess whoever was at the scene that needed to be helped.
So you actually see the doctor down there?
Yes.
Okay, and was anybody else there with the doctor?
The doctor was there, Stephen Bourgoin was there, and the police officer was there, the state trooper.
What position was the defendant in?
At that time, he was kind of like on his side, and he was handcuffed. His hands were behind his back.
Okay, so you went and got a medical emergency bag from one of the ambulances that had arrived?
Yes.
Okay, and then what did you do?
So I went down to where Stephen Bourgoin and the police officer and the physician were. As I was going down, I was gloving up. I was gloving up, and I grabbed some gloves out for the physician, and I said, what do you want me to do? And he was assessing Stephen at the time, Stephen Bourgoin, Mr. Bourgoin.
If I can stop you, first of all, why were you gloving up?
Because when I saw Stephen, he had some some scratches, so they had some blood that I could see. And I knew that after what I had witnessed, I thought for sure that there was probably going to be some body fluid.
Okay, so you keep referring to him as Stephen Bourgoin. How did you know what his name was?
So the only way I knew what his name was is because the physician was calling him Stephen at the time of the accident.
Okay, so you got there, you're gloved up, and is the police officer still there with the defendant?
Yes, he was.
With the doctor?
Yes, he was.
And what did you do next?
So the physician was assessing Stephen at the time, trying to interact, to talk with him to see what what was hurting, because he was yelling, and he tried to talk with him. He did not really respond, so the physician then asked the police officer to please uncuff him so that he could assess. He thought his hip something was wrong with his hip, injured his hip at some point.
If I could just stop you there. So before you got to where you're talking about now, do you know what conversation had happened between the doctor and the defendant lying on the ground before you got there?
No.
Okay. All right. So the doctor asks them to remove the handcuffs. Why?
Because he wanted to look at his hip. He wanted to see if there was something he wanted to check to make sure that wasn't, I guess to assess it, to take a better look at it.
Okay. So did the police officer remove the handcuffs?
Yes, the police officer did remove the handcuffs.
Okay. And where were you in relation to the defendant when the handcuffs were removed?
So the physician was towards the head of Stephen. The police officer was right to my right, and I was down below. So if Stephen was here, I was right about here, and the physician was up here, and the police officer was right here.
Okay. And so they take the handcuffs off. What happens?
So when they took the handcuffs off, Stephen tried to get up and run.
So tell us what you mean by he tried to get up and run.
So when they took the handcuffs off, he went to get off from the ground and take off again. He tried to get away.
Can you tell us physically what he was doing when he was trying to get away?
He was trying to get himself off the ground.
Okay. Did he actually ever be able to get up and stand?
No, because the police officer quickly pushed him back down to the ground and handcuffed him back.
Okay. And so how did you react to that when that happened?
So I remember saying to the physician, if you unhandcuff him, or if you ask to unhandcuff him again, I said, I am not going to be helping with this because I didn't know what he was capable of doing.
Okay.
And I told the police officer the same thing.
Okay. So did he remain handcuffed?
Yes, he did.
Did an ambulance arrive at some point?
Yes, when the emergency equipment came, they'd come in, there was a rig there that had come, and I just grabbed it and ran down with the equipment, so there was one. And there were other people that came after.
Okay. And so what did you do next?
So after Stephen was handcuffed back, I tried to take a blood pressure because the doctor needed to get some vital signs on the patient, and I tried to get a blood pressure. And it was really hard to hear because he was yelling. So I could only see the bevel, and I gave him what I could assess at that point. And then the ambulance rig came, and they brought a backboard.
Did you, after he was taken away, what did you do?
So when I was finishing, when the ambulance came and we were about to backboard him onto the stretcher, another emergency response person came down to tell me that my husband was in the back of our car, and I couldn't understand. I said, what do you mean he's in the back of the car? And he said that he was having leg spasms. One of his legs was spasming.
So did you go to your car?
I did. I went back up to assess him to see what was going on with him, and to see if there's anything.
When you got to your car, did you notice anything about your car?
Well, the whole front end, the windshield was all smashed, and it looked like there was a certain hole in the center of it that something had gone through and come through into the car.
Did you ever look to see what had come in through the car?
I did not, because I did not go to where the car was brought to after the accident.
Was your car damaged significantly?
It had over $10,000 worth of damage.
So I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification as states 34, 35, 36, and 37, and ask if you recognize what's in these photos.
So these are all photos of our car that we had just purchased.
And does it accurately represent what your car looked like after the incident on October 8th?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, the state would move these into evidence?
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay. 34 through 37.
Okay, so is this your car?
That is our car.
All right, and can you explain what damage we see here in this photo?
So you really don't see much damage besides if you look at the driver's window, in the front window, you'll see it's all smashed.
Okay, is that a better view of it?
Yes, that's a better view.
When you say the driver's window, you mean it was smashed in?
It was from the accident. It was something had hit, debris, I don't know what came flying through. And then it was like a domino effect with the accident. I remember that night. It was just the cruiser hitting the debris and then rolling into our line of vehicles. And vehicles were being pushed back. Metal was flying, metal was squealing. One car was flipped on its side. I had another car that I always said it was God shielding me. There was another car to my left, in front of ours, between the cruiser and I, and that really helped, I think, that it not hit me further.
I see that your windshield is smashed here.
Yes.
Okay, and then, is there any damage here on the passenger side of the car?
I don't know I think it was the other tire that was popped.
Okay. All right, and then there's damage to the front end here?
Yes, the grill.
On the driver's side?
Yep, the grill's all smashed up above.
Okay. Were you, thank you.
Actually, and what I remember, there was also scraping on the top of the roof.
On top of the what?
The roof?
Of the roof? Okay. All right. So, did you get the car fixed?
Yeah, they had to bring the car to the Toyota dealership on Shelburne Road when it took 5 weeks. I had a rental.
Were you injured at all in this?
No, I was able to walk away. I was still seatbelted in the vehicle.
Okay. Did your husband get injured at all?
My husband was not in the car when the second accident happened. He was outside of the vehicle.
Okay. And was he near the vehicle when the second accident happened?
Yeah, he took the ditch to the right of our vehicle. He had to run across. He was almost down where the initial first accident happened, where the truck was.
Thank you. They may have a couple of questions for you.
No questions.
You're all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, if we could approach, please.
Okay.
Watch your step.
Yeah, watch your step.
Just stand by the chair here. Face me and then raise your right hand. You solemnly affirm the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury.
Yes.
Please be seated, pull your chair forward, speak into the microphone.
Okay.
Sorry.
No one noticed.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Mary Ryan Lambert, Lambert.
And what town or city of residence do you reside in?
Queechee, Vermont.
Thank you. Are you employed?
Yes.
And how are you employed?
I'm a marketer for a consumer packaged goods company.
So I'd like to take you back to October 8, 2016, late at night. Were you traveling on that date and time?
Yes, my sister and I were coming home from Burlington.
Okay. And where were you traveling on? What interstate were you on?
We were on 89 headed southbound.
And where were you coming from?
We had dinner at Hen of the Wood in Burlington, Vermont.
Okay. And you were headed where?
We were headed back to Queechee. My sister was up from Atlanta visiting me for the weekend.
Okay. So What kind of car were you driving?
I was in a 2011 Volkswagen Jetta.
And you were heading south?
Correct.
And approximately what time was it?
When the accident happened, it was about maybe 10 till midnight, 5 till midnight, something like that.
Okay. So did something out of the ordinary happen when you were traveling I-89 that night on October 8th?
Yeah, my sister and I had noticed up ahead that there were a few cars over on the shoulder with their hazard lights on, stopped on the right-hand shoulder, and there was what appeared to be a fire. We could only see the tops of the flames in the median, which was down a little bit of a hill. We didn't know what was on fire, what was going on, but we pulled off to the shoulder as well and put our hazards on.
And at the time that you arrived on the scene, were any police officers on the scene?
Not that we saw, but we did not get out of our car.
Okay. And so as you're sitting there in your car, well, why are you parked on the side of the road?
So we parked on the side because everybody else was. We didn't know, are we about to drive through a crime scene? Is there something still happening? Will we need to help at some point? We didn't know what was going on, so we just figured we would stop and park and wait until somebody showed up, because it was obvious that if help wasn't there already, it should be there soon. And we stayed buckled up. I didn't even have the car in park. My foot was on the brake, so that we thought we would be moving along pretty shortly, but we noticed there were people in the highway and on the side of the highway looking down at the fire. So we assumed that we might not be going anywhere anytime soon. I don't know. We just kind of stayed put to wait and see what was happening.
Okay, and then, so did something happen?
Yeah, so my sister and I were kind of commenting on the people watching what was happening in the media, and like, it's kind of tacky. They're taking photos of these poor people on a horrible night of their lives. We assumed, right? I hadn't seen a car. And then all of a sudden, we saw all of those people sprinting back to their cars. And we were like, oh, there must be somebody down there kind of like herding the crowds. And then we saw a car in the distance headed the wrong way down the highway. And our first thought was, oh, good, the police are here, finally. It's really weird that he's going the wrong way down the highway. I remember I said to my sister, oh, my God, he's going 100 miles an hour. He's going to hit us. And then it was odd because he was in the fast lane, or either close to the center in the fast lane, coming the wrong direction at us. And at the last second, it looked like he intentionally cut the wheel to aim for our car, because otherwise he had been traveling pretty normally, albeit too fast and in the wrong direction.
What did you do when you saw that?
We were sitting ducks. There wasn't anywhere to go. There was no escape to be made, so I went to hug my sister. We were both like, okay, well, this is it. So I went to just hug my sister before the collision, and took the impact kind of on this whole side of my body. And when I came to, I don't think I was knocked out very long, but she was no longer in the car. We couldn't really get my driver's side door open, but somehow I ended up outside of the car.
So when you see the cruiser coming and you say that the person driving was actually steered in your direction, do you know if you were the first one hit or if some other vehicle got hit?
So, obviously it's impossible not to hear the other conversations going on. She and I both stand fast that we were the first cars hit when it happened.
And was it a direct hit or were you sideswiped?
So, since we were facing straight, like tied in a line on the shoulder, and it cut this way, it hit kind of like the front side of my car.
And did the cruiser keep going after it hit you?
I have no idea. It definitely ended up kind of twirled around and on fire somewhere behind where we were initially, but I don't know what happened to the car after it hit us.
Do you know where you parked in relation to, well, start that. When you first came on the scene, did you see any vehicles on the highway?
We didn't see anything. No, nothing on the highway. The only reason we stopped is because there was a fire in the median and we noticed other cars on the right-hand side. I did not notice anything in the lanes of travel.
Did you park north or south of where you saw the fire?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not good at. So if the fire was to the left, I would assume I was a little bit north then.
North, okay. All right. So did your airbags deploy?
Yes.
Okay. But you were able to get out?
Yes.
Was your sister in the car when you got out?
She was. When I got out, she was already out of the car helping me get out.
Okay. And so you get out of the car, and what happens next?
I remember everything was on fire. It was complete chaos. There was glass everywhere, car parts everywhere, screaming, crying. I mean, just, it was absolute chaos. And at one point, we thought we heard someone screaming that, because I'm still at this point angry that a police officer has hit me head on. That's where I'm at. And comedic relief. So I'm freaking out. Why did a cop just hit me? Why did a cop just hit me? What's happening? And then someone said, it's a stolen vehicle, girl. And they were like, he could have a gun or a knife. Everybody run. So then we're all going into the woods. We hear what sounds like gunshots. So now we're like, oh, what's happening? I don't know if it was a tire exploding or actual gun. We had no idea what was happening. And so we were planning to hang out in the woods, I guess. I don't really know what the plan was until we noticed there was a car. I want to say it was the car that would have been directly behind me. It could have been behind that. That was on its side. One side of it was up in the air. It was on fire. There were two guys inside who couldn't get out. There were people trying to help get them out, but it was obvious like there wasn't enough manpower, so we ditched the woods and tried to help these guys out of their car.
Were you able to get them out?
No, I was later diagnosed with a concussion. I was throwing up constantly. I mean, I don't know when I started throwing up, but I was throwing up for hours. And so I had one side of the door, somebody had the other side of the door, because we're trying to lift it straight up into the air. And I think the person across from me dropped to their side, and so it slammed down on my arm. And then I think I just went and continued to throw up somewhere else.
Okay. Did you see what happened to the cruiser that hit you, or where it was?
I remember the cruiser was on fire. I have a photo of it. I think it ended up, it's like the nose of the car was pointed diagonally away from where we were coming, so I guess that's northbound, on fire. And I think it was kind of like between the two lanes, maybe mostly in the fast lane.
Okay. So I'd like to show you what's been marked for State's Exhibits 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, and 43. And if you would just take a look at those and see if you recognize anything in those photos.
So this is my car in the first photo. Same.
Is that your car in
Yes.
State's Exhibit 39?
39 in Exhibit 40, Exhibit 41, Exhibit 42, and Exhibit 43, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move these into evidence.
Any objection?
Objection.
Okay. 38 through 43 are admitted.
Okay, so this is your car here.
Yes.
Can you tell us the damage that happened here on the driver's side of the car?
Yeah, so you can see that most of the damage is on the front left-hand side. So when we go to the later photos, you'll see the whole front of it smashed in right there.
And what's on the ground there, do you know?
What are we looking at? The white thing?
If we can go back. Right there, what is that?
I have no idea. Maybe a part of my car.
Okay, all right. So,
It looks like a floor mat as well.
and this is Exhibit 40, that's your car?
Yes.
Okay, and it was, and this is 41, and are those the airbags?
Yes.
Okay. And this is the car from a long shot down the road?
Mm-hmm.
And are those the cars that we see behind your cars, are those the cars that were parked behind you at the time of the crashes?
I would have to assume so. I didn't look at those cars after the accident, and beforehand it was dark.
Okay. And this is from the inside of your car?
Yes.
Is that how it looked when you got out?
Yes.
Was, so obviously significant damage was done to your car. Was it totaled?
Yes.
Okay. Did you sustain any injuries from this crash?
Yes. The night of the crash, they found broken ribs, a spinal compression fracture, pretty extensive bruising on my entire left side, and then later decided that I had nerve damage in this arm and a concussion. And I think that, and just like general whiplash, cuts, bruises.
The nerve damage to your arm, where did that come from? That injury, do you know?
The car door slamming down on my arm.
When you were helping?
Right after the accident.
Okay, helping the person with the flipped car?
Exactly.
Okay, and you sought medical help for that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions. I don't know if defense does?
No questions, Judge.
Okay, you're all set, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh yeah, Michael, go ahead.
Step up, stand by the chair, please. Face me and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Please be seated. Pull your chair up and speak into the microphone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Michael Plunkett, Plunkett.
Thank you. In what town or city do you reside in?
Shelburne now.
Okay, and where were you residing back in October of 2016?
Richmond.
So I'm going to take you back to, well, start that. Are you employed, Mr. Plunkett?
Yes,
Okay, what do you do?
I'm a tax preparer now.
So I'd like to take you back to October 8, 2016, late at night. Were you traveling that date and time?
Yes,
And what roadway were you traveling?
I was on I-89 heading back home to Richmond.
Okay, where were you coming from?
I had just gotten off of work at 5 and went to my buddy's house for dinner that night, and so we were going back to my house.
So you say we were going back to your house. Who was in the car with you?
My friend Michael Vishnia.
Okay, and so you were heading southbound?
Yes,
Okay, and do you remember approximately what time it was?
it was late night, around 11.
Okay, and what kind of car were you driving?
It was a Honda CRV.
So Did something out of the ordinary occur while you were traveling south on I-89 at night?
Well, when I was traveling south, I saw a cop car fly past me, and then I don't quite know how long it was, 30 seconds, a minute later, we drove up to a scene of an accident. There was something on fire in the middle of the highway on the grassy part.
Okay, and were there any other vehicles that you noticed when you arrived on that scene?
There was some vehicle in the center of the highway, and there was, I believe, a car parked in front of me.
Okay, so you pulled over to the side of the road?
Yep.
Okay, and this truck, was it a truck or a car that you saw in the middle of the highway?
I couldn't see it all that well that night, but
So the vehicle that you, it was a vehicle, correct?
yes.
Okay, the vehicle that you saw, where did you park in relation to where that vehicle was?
So I was pulled off on the right of the highway. I don't quite know how many feet back from it, but
Okay, and you got out of your car?
yes, both my buddy and I got out of my car and started walking towards whatever was on fire.
Okay, and were any police on scene at the time that you got there?
There was, and the police on scene yelled for people to get back in their car, and that's when my buddy and I walked back over to my car.
Okay, so you were on your way to see what was going on with the car that was on fire,
Yes.
and then someone told you to get back in your car?
Yes.
Did you know why you were being told to get back in your car?
No.
Okay, but did you get back in your car?
Yes.
Okay, and did you you got into your car?
Yes.
All right, and did you put your seatbelts on when you got in?
Thankfully, yes.
Okay, so then what happened?
My buddy and I heard a noise. I remember looking up and seeing headlights, and then my car was struck on the front left side of the vehicle. That ended up spinning my car around, rolling it over into the side of the highway. The car landed on my side, and then when my buddy unbuckled, he landed on top of me and got himself out, and then found people to help get me out of my car.
Okay, so you saw a vehicle coming towards you. Do you know what kind of vehicle it was?
No, I just remember seeing the headlights, really.
Okay, and the only thing you saw was the headlights coming towards you, and then you getting hit, spinning around and going on your side?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell what if the car that was coming towards you was going fast, slow?
Well, my buddy and I saw the headlights, and then it hit us, so we figured it must have been going pretty fast.
And so what, you said your car went on your side. Was it the driver's side or the passenger side that it landed on the side?
It landed on the driver's side.
Okay. So, and you said that your friend unbuckled his seatbelt, and he fell on you?
Yeah, because the passenger side was up in the air,
Okay.
so
So did your friend, it's Michael Vishnia,
yes.
was he filming anything while he was in the car?
He took his phone out to start recording when we originally got out of my car to go see what was going on. And so he caught like the headlights of the car hitting us, and
Okay. So have you seen that video?
yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time we would like to play the video, or move it into evidence, and a very short video.
So what's it marked as?
Yes, it's marked as 46.
Any objection? No objection. Okay. So first of all, 46 is admitted without objection.
Can we help us get out? Get us out!
Who was that saying, "Oh God, oh God, oh God"?
I'm not sure. That was another person on the highway. Oh,
In the-
sorry. In the beginning, that was me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Kind of nervous.
That's okay. Okay. So I think you had indicated that your friend wasn't injured at all. Is that correct?
No, he just got like a scrape on his knee.
So you're in the car and you said your friend went for help. What's the next thing that happens?
So he got a guy named Chris, and Chris ended up finding somebody else. So one person had to crawl inside my car.
While it's still on its side?
Yep, well, it's still on its side, and lift me up by my waist while Chris was standing on top of my car, kind of helped use my good shoulder and grab my belt and lift me out of my car to get me out because I couldn't get myself out.
Did they unbuckle your seatbelt or did you do that?
I unbuckled my own seatbelt and stood up, but with all the pain in my left shoulder and everything else, I couldn't lift myself out.
I think we saw in the video that your airbags had deployed.
Yes.
Okay. So you get out. They take you out of your car, and what is it you see? Where are you when you get out of the car?
So when I got out, there just was all these cars just kind of banged up. There was a cop car in the center of the highway that was wrecked, and I was with my buddy Mike, and we started to walk northbound, and some people tried getting me to lean up against a car, but the car they tried leaning me up against was by the cop car that had caught on fire, and I didn't want to be near that, so Mike and I kept heading northbound, and then that's when we saw an ambulance, and Mike and I walked over to the ambulance.
And did you get in the ambulance?
Yes.
Were you taken to the hospital?
Yes.
Okay. From the scene?
Yes.
So did you receive any injuries from what happened to you?
Yes.
Could you tell the ladies and gentlemen what injuries you received?
So I broke my left clavicle. I got 2 plates in there and 10 screws now. I broke my left shoulder blade on my back, cracked 2 ribs, collapsed lung, and I fractured a vertebrae in my neck, the C5.
hospitalized for these injuries?
Yes.
And for how long?
Initially, I spent 3 days there, and then I had to go back for the surgery on my shoulder, week and a half later or so. And I spent another 2 days in the hospital.
Okay. And your car was damaged as a result of this crash?
Yes, it was totaled.
Okay. I'd like to show you what's been marked for identification as States Exhibits 44 and 45 and ask if you recognize these photographs.
Yes.
Okay. Are they of your car?
Yes.
And is that the way your car looked at the time that the crash happened and it was flipped on its side?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, the state would move 44 and 45.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay. 44 and 45 were admitted.
So we're looking at the car, the front is facing north,
Yes.
okay, and you are on the ground there, on the driver's side?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. So your car was totaled?
Yes, it was.
Thank you, that's all the questions I have. I don't know if defense has any questions.
Any questions? Okay, you're all set. Thank you.
Your Honor, at this time, the state has no further witnesses.
Okay. We usually try to plan this, but apparently the state had one other witness who was scheduled to testify that had a last-minute medical issue. So we may hear from that witness later on in the trial, but that's why we are now short of time, at least at this point. This will give us an opportunity to work on some other issues that need to be done outside of your hearing anyway at this point. So we're going to excuse you for the rest of the afternoon. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning, again at 8:45. We're going to continue to ask that you avoid all news accounts, conversations, anything that could somehow, some way bring further information to you about this case at this point. And I want to thank you for continuing to honor that request. So we'll stand in recess from the jury, and then I'd like to talk to the attorneys on the side.
Rise, please.